Hi everyone, I'm Mare, and welcome to my brand new channel, Hobby with Mare. I'm starting this space because I've always loved the idea of trying new things. On this channel, I'll be diving into completely new hobbies for the first time, and in other cases, I'll be revisiting things I already do to see how I can learn more and improve. I'm also brand new to making videos. So while I'm learning these hobbies, I'm also learning how to be a creator. I hope you'll stick with me as the quality and my skills grow over time. My real hope is that we can all try and learn something new together. In this video, I decided I'd feature my fish tank. This is my fish tank. I've actually had this tank for about 6 years now. When I first set it up, my kids were much younger, so the decor was chosen with them in mind. But now that the kids are older, I've decided it's time for a change. I want to shift away from the toy look and transform this into a more natural, peaceful environment for my fish. In the past, I'll admit one of my biggest mistakes was just jumping into my tank without a real plan. I'd buy something and drop it in, buy some new fish, and hope for the best. This time I've done my homework. I've spent hours researching and watching videos on aquascaping to make sure I'm doing this right. Before we can even get to the pretty parts, I decided to make some key changes to minimize the visual distractions that come with keeping an aquarium. I wanted the focus to be entirely on the natural beauty, not on the wires and tubes. So I spent some time making a few key changes. I streamlined the flow by moving both the filter intake and outtake to one corner of the tank. I also completely hid the heater on that same side behind a strategic rock and carefully tucked away all the air filter tubes into the back corner. I am so excited that I finally moved this essential hardware out of sight. We can finally focus on the most exciting part of this entire transformation, adding the driftwood and some live plants. I bought some driftwood online, and once it arrived, I needed to prepare it for my tank. In order to do this, everything I read suggested that the best approach was to boil it in a pot for 3 hours. So I set to work. But even though I have the driftwood in my biggest pot, it clearly didn't fit. So I basically boiled half of the driftwood for an hour and a half, flipped it around, and boiled it for another hour and a half before calling it a day. When I was finally ready to add the driftwood to my tank, I had one small issue. One piece sank right away, while the other one continued to float. My research told me that I could hold it down with rocks, or I could wait. In fish keeping, I have learned that patience is truly a virtue and decided to give it the time it needed to really sink to the bottom of my tank. It took about 4 days for this to happen, and then I was ready to start planting the live plants. My local fish store doesn't have a great selection of aquatic plants to include in my tank, so I decided to order online. These plants have been in my tank for a few weeks now, waiting for the driftwood to be ready. And while they waited, I kept them in their original pots. So once the driftwood was finally sunk, I started by removing all the plants from their pots, and then I individually placed each of the plants into the substrate. Please note that I do use substrate for a live planted tank. And I don't know very much about it, but that is what my fish shop recommends. And so that's what I use. These are the tools I use to help maintain my tank. As you can see, I have two long tweezers. This helps to push the plant roots into the substrate because my arm is not long enough to do so. I also have scissors so that I can trim plants as needed. I have a net to remove any unwanted floating debris. And then I have my two tools to help clean the sides and pieces of aquarium decor. I will note that my tank has been neglected for some time, so I did my best to remove some of the algae from the side, but this is definitely a work in progress. I also decided to keep the plant pots because you never know what the future will hold, and maybe I'll use this to help me propagate some plants later on. So that's it. After I individually placed all of the different plants and their roots into my substrate, it definitely looked a bit cloudy, but give it about an hour and your tank will be thriving. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. I look forward to more hobbies we can partake in together. If you have any suggestions or ideas of how I can improve my tank, I'd love to hear them because, as I've mentioned, this is a hobby and I'm here to learn too. Thank you. Please subscribe and like my channel, and hopefully, there will be more to come. Now, enjoy the peaceful time watching my fish explore their tank.